Okay, guys, let's go ahead and get started. So, welcome to the February Sitecore Meetup. I apologize, this was actually supposed to be in January, but the St. Louis region actually had quite a bit of weather issues, and we had to postpone this. So, our apologies, but we're putting this on the books for February. So, thanks for joining us. Today, we are going to go through we don't have announcements really today other than we're glad to get back in the swing of things. We're glad to start out the new year with this meetup. But we do have a good talk today. I hope you find value. Dat Nguyen, he's a Sitecore senior web engineer for Roundedcube in Houston, Texas. And he has developed this module for Sitecore, and I think you'll find it really, really cool. It solves a good business problem for not only the for performance, for technical debt, but also for manageability of the content. So it's a good tool. So this session is called Smart Media Module with Dat Nguyen. And Dat, I'll have you go ahead and take control of the screen, please.
Okay. Give me a moment while I start my screen share. All right, let me know when you see something.
I see it, Dad.
Okay, well, let me first switch to the slide. All right. So, as I was introduced, we are going to go through the Smart Media module, and this is our timeline here of the meetup. Just going to go through the purpose and the demo, and then we're going to overview the module that was built, and then we'll review the authoring experience and what happens behind the scenes for all of this to work, and discuss what's next, and also a Q&A session at the end. So what we're working with, what we're going to show you today is something I call a smart media module, which is to help us with the mainly with the imagery of a website. So as you know, these days websites tend to use larger images, a lot of images, and higher quality images due to broadband and the capabilities of today's devices. And so because of that, as I mentioned, we do use a lot of more images and higher quality images, but this poses a problem for smaller devices where you have not broadband use, but you're on data, and there's tend to be slower connections, and we would like to have the same speed performance out of our websites loading on these smaller devices, but because the images tend to be larger, they take longer to load and cause problems with certain things like SEO and stuff like that. So the challenge here is to scale these images for low resolution devices, and also to crop them appropriately for these breakpoints that are smaller. And because of that, sometimes we also need to position these images in the containers because they are being resized. And as you can see in the graphic right here, if we have an element that has background image and we don't resize it properly, it'll end up like what's on the left. So we want to try to achieve something where we can fill the whole container with an image like on the right, and also make a position where we can focus on something that we want to focus on, like the man in the image. and also the last thing is to do a lazy loading so that it puts it all together and make everything even a better experience whenever we're loading the website in with all these images. We want to do some lazy loading so that you got your site fully loaded before the images do, and it will help with the load times and such. And the last bullet it says that we want to do all of this without changing existing markup, logic, or assets. That's the I think that's the most important part, because sometimes we have clients who've already have an existing website, and we want to implement this a solution for them that doesn't require them to do any other work to use our module. So this is the challenges that we tackled with this module here that we're going to just see. And with that, I'm going to go into what other solutions are out there to deal with this problem. So first, of course, we got the Sitecore device layouts. You can actually create layouts for different devices, and that's a pretty good solution. But most times, developers like to use the responsive design and use Bootstrap to cover all the breakpoints, and tend not to use that part of Sitecore where we're building new layouts for different devices, right? So when you're using that model, then we kind of take that out of the equation. We're looking for other solutions, like maybe people would use multiple image fields to store tablet and mobile alternate versions of the image so that they load at those breakpoints. But you do have to create these scaled down versions of the images themselves and store them in the Sitecore media library. Also, there might be solutions out there where they automatically create scaled images for you. When you upload an image, they'll automatically create additional images that are scaled down. But of course, you still need the additional logic to show the images. You need the data field as well to populate with those images that were created automatically. And lastly, we got some crop and resize tools out there that content managers can use to do the cropping themselves manually and resizing them. Yeah, and most of the time you still have to add new items to the database, but as I'll show you, that these things aren't necessary with the module that we created. So at this point, I want to go ahead and demo what this looks like on a website. So I'm gonna switch to my browser, and you can see here, this is a sample website that I built. It's basically an e-learning website from Sitecore's training package. So I just hijacked it and use it for this purpose. You can see here that it has a large banner and some copy here. And this image here is a very large image. It's around 2.4 megabytes originally. So I uploaded it as is, no edits, no resizing, no optimization. All right, so this is how it looks like. It's a container with a background image, so you can see it doesn't even look like much. There's water, some stone in the water, and you can't really see anything. You can't make anything out of it. But I just want to show you that there's a bigger picture here. But for right now, it's position center. All right. But to show you what the image size is, I'm sorry, I'm gonna reload this page. So over here, this is the image, the whole image right here. It has a swan in it. So it's cropped off because the image height is only this so much. And that's part of the demo, just to show you what we're going to do with positioning later on. But I don't know if you can see this clearly. Everybody can see this clearly, right? On the right side, there is an image there with a swan in it. I just want to make sure everyone can see what I'm describing.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And I wanted you to note that this size here, it says 457 kilobytes. All right. And this is the desktop size. I think it's about, I don't know, 1278 pixels wide. So I'm going to switch over to a mobile view with this emulator here. And remember, this is 457 kilobytes right now. When I switch to mobile, or let me get you, I'm gonna reload this page. Here you see the image goes down to 88.4 kilobytes. This is a scaled down image. There's no additional logic going on in the view or in the Sitecore read. We're reading from the same field. I'm going to show you that in a bit. But you can see here in mobile view, in a mobile device, it'll load in a smaller version of this image automatically. And it's about a 300 kilobyte savings right here. It could be more depending on the image, but you can see that it's definitely not loading in the full-size image. I'm going to show you what that image looks like. You can see here, this is the image that's being loaded, and it appears to be cropped on both sides, even top and bottom. And you can see part of the swan here only. But I'm going to show you how we can manipulate all of this in Sitecore in a moment. But you can see that the result is you get a cropped image in the mobile view, a smaller image, but it's still about the same quality. All right, so now I'm going to switch over to Sitecore. And you can see here that this is the content item that is being displayed. Here's the picture of the swan. And you can see here the dimensions are 2048 by 1365. That's the original dimensions. And in case I neglected to show you this, but the dimensions here are, well, can't I see what this is? Well, I don't think we can see. We can move this out of the way, can I? Well, the dimensions here are 576. Just to be brief about it. 576 in width. When the original is, what was it, 2048. Okay, so seeing that, I want to show you how we can move things around to show, like for instance, the swan more in view, because right now you don't see anything but just water and stone, right? So using our tool in Sitecore, we have this thing called crop focus command. I'm going to open it up, and you can see here that there is a dot that you can set onto the picture at any point. I'm going to set it over the swan here. I'm going to save it. And what this does is realigns this photo so that we see the swan instead. And you can see the image size sort of changed a little bit because, you know, we got maybe more image detail in this version of the image. But you can see here that we didn't have to add in a new image in Sitecore. We didn't have to crop it ourselves and upload it and use a different field or anything like that. But that's the that's the demo right there to show you, give you the gist of what we've accomplished here. And I want to show you something else at the larger screen. You can see the swan actually comes into view as well, because we've shifted our focus, and now it shows more of the swan rather than before when you only saw water in stone. Okay, any questions so far? No? Okay. So,
there's one here.
oh, okay.
I got a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So is there, I'm not sure if I should, a minimum size, for instance, to go to the mobile image, in this case, it worked out, I could see the whole swan, but, if the particular image was such, could I wind up just looking at the wing or something, which would be, totally obscure and meaningless? Is there a way I can say I only want to read, I want to focus on the swan, but you've got to at least give me, a neck or, something I can identify, a minimum size in that picture.
A minimum size. Okay. Well, I think we will get to a point where this question might be answered. I do give you some specifications about how this works, but yeah, there are configurable sizes that you configure for each breakpoint, and they give you a minimum size, or actually a maximum size for each breakpoint. So, for instance, a mobile device, there's a, what was it, a 576, I said. So in this view, you see 576 here. 576 pixels image will cover anything from that point on down. So it'll that image will be any image that was any mobile device that's under that width will use this 576 pixel copy of that image. Does that kind of answer your question? I'm not sure if that's...
Yeah, it's the right direction. I want to know more, but go on.
Yeah, okay. So just want to show you one more breakpoint, maybe tablet here. So you can see there's also a breakpoint for tablet that it's at 768. So it's slightly larger image in size, but you can see here at every breakpoint that we've set up in this little demo, there's going to be a different size, different dimensions of the image, and the results will be much smaller than the original image itself. All right. So any other questions before I move on? Just about, what you saw here, and I might have some technical answers later on. Okay. Then I will go ahead and progress here. So just a little overview about what we're going to talk about the module. You can see there's two sides to a major process of the module. First is the rendering process, and next is the authoring process. And on the rendering side, there's HTML processing, image processing, and lazy loading going on. Lazy loading happens to be the whole crux of the solution. Without it, we probably couldn't get this to work. But you'll see how it all comes together in a moment. And on the authoring side, we have your image creation and media storage and editor tools that we're going to go over. Oh, sorry, my computer is going crazy. All right, so the authoring experience, you can see earlier I had a pop-up window open for that crop focus tool, and it's a major part of the authoring experience, so that you can have that control to set your crop focus. And mainly that's the only thing the author has to do is just to set the crop focus, and everything else happens behind the scenes. So it's very easy for a content author to use. All you have to do is just move the dot around. And there's also another command called zoom. I neglected to show you that, so I might as well do it. So you can see here in the screen, there's a slider at the bottom. And what it does is it adjusts the zoom in a cropped image that you want to show. So here is at max zoom. Let me just make sure we can see the difference. So this is what the image looks like now, and I'm gonna try to zoom out. Now this doesn't work as like in an absolute terms. Like if you go all the way out, it doesn't like zoom all the way, show you the entire image or anything like that. More of how much is the image is available to be zoomed out. It doesn't go zoom out of the bounds of the image itself. So it needs to know the dimensions of the image first and see how much available space it can zoom. So that's what we're working with here. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will show you the entire image if you zoom all the way out. Okay, so I'm gonna set the zoom to completely be 0. So that'll be fully zoomed out with quotation marks around that, and then I'm gonna reload the page to see if we can see a difference here. So here's the first version. I'm gonna reload it, and there's the second version, and you see more of the image now. Okay. Sorry about that. I should have shown that earlier. But yeah, that is what we're the whole tool of this module is this right here. So we've given you the ability to use this tool in several places. The command here in this in the content editor, as well as in the experience editor as well. Well, this is another image, but you can see here, if I open experience editor and I look at my image, and there's a button here to do what you just saw earlier. So same functionality, it's the same application. You'll just load in experience editor as well. And then if you are in media library, it's also there as well up here in the ribbon. Open that up, and you got your tool shows up, and you can see that everything that I set before is saved, and it opens up with the right focus and everything, the zoom. So only 2 buttons: reset and save. Nothing to it. Okay. All right. So what was I going to go on to show you next? Okay. Oh, sorry. Was there a question?
Ask another question?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically you set a limit with that slider, is that correct? You've limited how close in you're going to get that picture?
Yeah, you're right. There's only a limited range of zoom. Like I said before, it has to consider how much what the aspect ratio of the image is, the size of it. If there's any space to work with, zooming in and out, how much is there? We can't go out of bounds, and we can't go too far in bounds, because you got to, you get the idea. So zoom has kind of limited use, but it could be very useful if you it's in there as a bonus, I guess. But I think that some people will find good use for it. All right.
I agree. It kind of goes right to what my original point was of, I wouldn't find it useful if I zoomed in on the wing and just got, a picture of a white feather. It doesn't help, but yeah, if I can limit how close in it goes, that's perfect. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we just touched on all the authoring experience. Very simple. I'll show you the command for the content editor and the experience editor and the media library ribbon button. Any Any other questions before I move on to a more technical aspects of it? Okay. So next slide. We're going to discuss a little back-end technical stuff about how this all works. So you can see here that there's HTML processing going on. We have a custom media provider in here that adds preliminary media query parameters. So in the query, in the image URL, you can see here there are some parameters attached to the URLs. There's a mod. One of the it's CW means crop width. C means crop is true. I'm not sure if I need C equals 1 anymore, but the gist is we are adding new query parameters. They they are custom media parameters that can be hashed as well with the rest of the parameters. So that is a factor in the hashing. Let's see here. HTTP request processor. This is our main processor where it processes the entire HTML document to add in the certain classes and the actual image tags that are necessary to load in the images the way we want it. And then, as I said before, bLazy is the driver and the whole thing. This lazy loading script library is responsible for actually loading in the images that we tell it to. So this HTTP request processor, what it does is rewrite the HTML document with the appropriate image tags and the background image URLs with the added query parameters, and bLazy does the requesting later on. Any questions there? Okay, I'm gonna move to the next slide. So bLazy, in case you're not familiar with it, I can give you some information here. So what it is a JavaScript library that does lazy loading, and this is what we started with. Is we wanted to just lazy load our images to make this site load faster, right? But it expanded from there to incorporate Sitecore into it, just see how we can add in that information that bLazy uses to load in these images. So what we started off was to figure out how bLazy can work. It could load images that any breakpoints that you specify. You can configure those breakpoints at certain widths and use as many as you want. Any questions about bLazy? Is everybody familiar with how lazy loading techniques work on websites?
Love bLazy. Love the name, Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no clue how it works. I love the name.
Yeah, it's quite a unique name. So yeah, lazy loading, bLazy. So just in case you're not familiar with jargon, lazy loading means as you load in the page, the images don't load right away, but rather a script will request that image after the page is entirely loaded. And sometimes you can even set it, or many times you can set it so that it loads only when the image itself comes into view in the browser. I prefer to have every image load right away after the page is loaded, but it's still lazy loading. You just can load it immediately, or you can load it as the image comes into view in your browser. So that's the main feature of bLazy or lazy loading images. It's pretty cool, and it does save you, some load time there because you're not loading everything at the page load. You're not requesting all the images as well. So that's what we use bLazy for. That's one of the major things that drive this whole thing is to have bLazy do the loading of the images for us. So I mentioned before our HTTP processor rewrites the HTML document, and it does put in the URLs for all the images at every breakpoint into a data attribute. And we're having bLazy read the appropriate one and loading only the image that we need, not all the images at all breakpoints, but just the image at the breakpoint that we're viewing in. Okay. All right. I will go to the next screen, and you see this is we're talking about the image requesting now. bLazy sends the request for the images after the page is fully loaded. So the URL query parameters that I was showing you earlier tells Sitecore what to send back. Those contains the dimensions, and it tells you if we're supposed to be cropping or not. So on larger desktop screens, there's no cropping because most of the time we're just showing you the whole image, and then it gets positioned. Like if it's a background image, it gets positioned by CSS in your background, like center or at a percentage, whatever. But in the smaller resolutions, there has to be some cropping because we can't really dictate to Sitecore in a kind of a smart way with CSS where to position the elements on a model screen, because sometimes, as you see, that the focus is can change. Like for instance, if you have a repeater component like a slider, and you set your CSS to display every image that's at center 50%, right? And you don't know if you're going to see what you need in every slide. So this way, each individual image is going to have that crop focus information sent to the browser, and then Sitecore will send back the image that is appropriately cropped and focused on the thing that you want to see, even in repeater elements like sliders, so that you don't have to rely on CSS, do guesswork about where you should position these background images or whatever. And it's fully under the control of the content editor. Also, I got more bullet points. Custom media parser will cache the query parameters that we're sending over. Those new query parameters are so it makes sure the images are cached that were requested, basically. So you're not asking Sitecore to process the image with your image processing tools every time you make a request. These images that are processed the first time are then cached, and then later on they're just served from the cache. The next item is get media stream pipeline, processes the images. There is the image processor for the initial request. So what it does is, it uses the .NET image editing to make the crops and resize the image according to what the parameters are. And then the subsequent requests are filled from the media cache, like I mentioned before. Any questions here? Okay.
You're doing good, Dat. Appreciate it.
Thanks. All right. Now we're going to move on to talking about the configuration. There are actually lots of configurations, but I want to touch on just the major ones. First of all, there's a way that you can turn off lazy loading for certain elements. If you decide an image shouldn't be lazy loaded, you can attach the no lazy load class to them, and you can also use this no lazy load class on the div on certain elements that have background images. You can apply this class directly to them. And you can even configure the name of this class in the configuration file in case you don't want to use no lazy load. You can name it something else and use that class. Also, you can configure which sites you want to use lazy loading or this module or certain content nodes. You can designate a root node where it can be used and other root nodes will just be ignored. You can allow only certain nodes in your site to use this module. You can even configure the breakpoints. So I think I have 6 configured in my my sample website right now, but you can configure 5 or 7 or 8, how many points you need, but you can set it at every 100 pixels if you want. There's not much savings between 100 pixels, I guess, width. So you probably want to just keep it down to about 5 or 6 if you're going to do something with your custom breakpoints. And then also you can configure the actual query keys, the query parameter keys, in case you have conflicts with something else in your solution that uses those same query keys or something like that. Any questions about configuration? Now, I just want to go ahead and show you what the HTML looks like. So here you see the site itself, but we're going to view the page source so you can see what the HTML markup looks like when we did all this. This element here is a header. This is the item that contains that swan image. You can see here there's a bLazy class attached. That's to tell the lazy loading that this image this element should be lazy loaded. You see our background URL, background image URL. It's empty because our HTML processor, our HTTP processor, has rewritten this to take out the URL from that from inside this brackets here and putting them into data attributes. You can also see here, this is the background position that's being set by that crop focus point that we messed with earlier. So you can see these are the percentages of the same exact numbers that come from Sitecore is being put in here. And these data attributes, data SRC small desktop, SRC desktop, SRC widescreen, these are the data attributes that the image URL goes into with the parameters that tell Sitecore what image to serve. So at small desktop, you can see that NW max width is 1280. Every image is going to have a mod that's just a modification date of that of the image itself. And you see here for desktop it's 1440, for widescreen it's 1920, mobile it's 576, and this parameter here is called CW. I said it before, it's a crop width, so it's not max width, but it's crop width. It tells Sitecore what the width of the crop is, but there's some calculation going on behind the scenes that tells you with the along with the crop focus itself, that tells us what how to crop that image and what it should look like. And tablet got its own. So every breakpoint that you configure, each breakpoint that you configure will have a data attribute that belongs to it with the name of the attribute that you give it. So small desktop, widescreen. I'll show you the configuration file in a moment. So that's the HTML rewrite. Any questions about that? Okay.
On the, take small desktop, for instance, I can't quite read, after small desktop, media, Zoom, that's good.
Yeah, sorry.
That's good. Okay, mod, okay, that's the word I couldn't read, was mod, okay. And then in the next line, okay, MW, did you say that was maximum width?
Yeah, it's still max width. Yeah, but we're taking these numbers come from the configuration file. You're setting in the configuration file a width for that breakpoint and the name of that breakpoint. So this is the name of the breakpoint, small desktop, and this is the width that you set it to. So theoretically, you can create dozens of of breakpoints if you wanted to at the widths that you specify, but that's not really advantageous to do that. You just want a few. 6 here is good enough, I think. And you see I have covered mobile and tablet widths, and I determined that they should be cropped, so they're using CW. And for other breakpoints, the larger ones, they're not being cropped at all, so they're using just MW. And I'll go ahead and show you the configuration file so that you can see how that is put together. Where is my? All right. Let's see here. All right. So just to show you how breakpoints are configured, right here we have a media resize desktop breakpoint settings. There's desktop settings and there's mobile settings. The mobile is the one that does the cropping. So whatever breakpoints you set in this setting here will be determined to be cropped. So you have your data attribute SRC mobile, which is generated on the HTML, and then the width that you need it at. So that's how you configure all these breakpoints in the configuration file. They're separated by pipe. So you can have multiple mobile breakpoints and multiple desktop breakpoints. Okay. You can see other configurations, like you allow certain extensions. So right now, PNG, JPG, all the credit keys here, the valid MIME types. There's also some calculus here, minimum height to width ratio. So you can configure how the cropping works by setting the minimum height to width ratio that of the image that is generated by the crop. So
Any
right
chance
here.
Any chance we can increase the font on that? The white on black is really kind of blurring out.
Sorry. Yeah, it's too large.
Like the Master Chief version or something, with it being dark like that.
That's better.
All right.
Much better.
All right. You can see now. Okay. So you can see here, no lazy loading. Any questions about these configurations? All right. Also, something that I think I skipped over, but on the image themselves, there are new fields that contain the data for the crop that we set. So once you set the focus right here with that tool, the focus point is saved as numbers inside these new fields in the image in the image item. So 5482, this is what is fed back to our to Sitecore to generate the background position percentage. So, and also the zoom is saved as well in its own field. You can edit them here, but I don't think there's no validation, so that's probably not wise to just put numbers in anywhere in here. 0 to 100 is what you should be putting in, but you shouldn't trust content editors to just put values in here. Just use the tool when possible. Okay. We've gone through configuration. And just want to touch on the benefits. This module is plug and play almost. So the only thing you have to do if people use this module is to install the package, and then also to put in the reference to the bLazy scripts that are being used. So they have to go into your layout or your bundle configuration if you have that. So that's about all you have to do to get this to start working for any website that you need it for. Simplifies the asset creation. You only have to create the image once, preferably in the largest version that you can. So if you have a large image, you don't want to. You want it to be at a minimum about 1920 pixels for this to be really effective. Any lower than that, it doesn't. It actually doesn't create a version that's larger than the original image. So if you have an image that is originally just 1,000 pixels wide, it'll appear stretched in a widescreen monitor. Okay, and hopefully this will improve search engine ranking because you're actually having smaller images load, and mobile means faster loads, and Google loves that, I believe. What's next is we're considering some additional enhancements that are not done yet, but maybe versioning. I'm not sure about that yet. Versioning and localization, I'm not sure if there's a need for that, but I just want to consider it. Also, preview auto publishing toggle. There is right now. Whenever you save your changes on the focus tool, it automatically publishes images. But I probably should go back and just have it, manual publish on the image itself rather than auto publish on save, because that's not exactly the standard way of doing things. Author specifies no lazy load. So right now we're just applying a class to elements that we don't want lazy loaded, but in the future we're going to have something like a checkbox where author can specify whether a component can lazy load or not, or possibly per image itself. So we can specify the image or the component will lazy load. That means if they set it, it won't be able to use the module as described. And maybe HTML5 tags later once more browsers support it. So we're going to use possibly use it with picture tag and src set. Last thing is probably explore if there's any better compression techniques, and maybe use it for other image formats. Right now it's just PNG and JPG. Yeah, then that's about all I have right now. Any questions before any questions? I guess this is the Q&A part right now.
On the phone, we have several of you on the phone that are muted right now, so if you have any questions, we're actually going to roll right into Q&A, and don't be shy if there's anything that did not cover that you feel like needs to be covered, or you want to go back to a part and get some clarification on, or have them revisit that, please let them know. Anybody on the phone? Okay. So Dat, we thank you very much. I don't see any questions posted right now on the comments here. Hang on one second, I just want to make sure, because I am in companion mode here, and I want to make sure that nobody's waiting here for a response. Nope, it doesn't look like it. So, Dat, thank you very much. So just so that we're clear, everybody, what we heard today is a tool that Dat has dubbed the Smart Media tool, I believe. Is that right, Dat?
Yes.
Yep. It is a Sitecore module. It is something that Dat has developed in order to solve a unique business problem, and that is, one, give the content managers the ability to identify in a picture the areas that they want to have crop focus and zoom on while the image contains within the browser window, but then two, have that automatically based on the preloaded breakpoints, reduce file sizes automatically. So at the different breakpoints, it reduces those file sizes automatically. And so personally speaking, I think it's a really neat solution. It's also very beneficial to our clients. And if you have any questions about this tool, you can email Dat directly at dat.nguyen at roundedcube.com. So that's dat.nguyen at roundedcube.com. Or you're more than welcome to post in the public comments of this meetup on meetup.com as well. Within the next probably day or two, depending on how fast Teams will let us download and how fast YouTube will let us upload, we will get this recording with the screen and comments and everything into YouTube, and we'll provide that link to everybody publicly. So if you don't have anything else, guys, Dat, thank you very much for the overview, and we look forward to the next call.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. It was fun.
Absolutely. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye.